Commander Sarah Chen gripped the armrests of her command chair as the Terran's wrath shuddered under enemy fire. The bridge lights flickered red, casting an ominous glow across the faces of her crew. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the sleek silver ships of the Korthak Empire closing in on the refugee convoy they were sworn to protect. "Report," she barked over the din of alarms. Lieutenant Rodriguez, hunched over his tactical display, didn't look up. "Enemy fleet consists of 12 cruisers and 4 dreadnoughts, Commander. They're maintaining attack formation and targeting our escort positions." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Korthak had been hunting the Zilani refugees for 3 weeks now, ever since their home planet had been declared unsuitable for habitation by the Galactic Council. In reality, the Zilani's crystal-rich world had simply been too valuable to leave in the hands of a pacifist species. The Council's solution? Forced relocation to a barren moon in the Outer Rim. But the Zilani transport ships were old, fragile things that couldn't make the journey without protection. That's where the Deathworlder fleet came in. "Sir," came the voice of Ensign Park from the communications station, "the lead transport is requesting permission to break formation and surrender." "They're afraid we can't protect them." Sarah's eyes flashed with determination. "Tell them to maintain position. No one surrenders on my watch." The term Deathworlder had originally been used as an insult by the more civilized races of the galaxy. Earth, with its crushing gravity, violent weather, and hostile wildlife, was considered one of the most dangerous planets in known space. The idea that anything intelligent could evolve there seemed impossible to species that had developed on garden worlds with gentle breezes and predictable seasons. But when humanity first ventured into space and encountered the Galactic Council, they quickly discovered that what made them unsuitable for polite society also made them incredibly effective at protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Humans didn't just survive on death worlds, they thrived. And that translated into a unique ability to face down the galaxy's worst predators. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out, "the Korthak are demanding we stand down. They claim salvage rights on the refugee ships." Sarah's laugh was cold and humorless. "Salvage rights? Those ships are full of living beings, not scrap metal." She keyed her comm unit. "This is Commander Chen of the Terran Deathworlder fleet. The beings under our protection are non-combatants seeking asylum. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came back in the chittering, insectoid language of the Korthak, which the ship's translator rendered in a mechanical voice, "Deathworlder scum, you have no authority here. These creatures are property of the Empire now. Surrender or be destroyed." Sarah looked around at her crew. They were all human, all volunteers who had chosen to serve in the most dangerous branch of Earth's military. They knew the odds. 16 ships against 24, protecting a convoy of helpless refugees. But she could see the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "All ships, this is actual," she announced over the fleetcom. "The Korthak want to fight. Let's give them one they'll never forget. Remember what we're fighting for." As if on cue, the main screen shifted to show the interior of one of the refugee ships. Dozens of Zilani families huddled together, their pale blue skin and large, dark eyes making them look almost fragile. The children clung to their parents, their crystalline hair catching the dim light. They were a beautiful species, artists and philosophers who had never known violence until the Galactic Council decided their world was too valuable to leave in their hands. "Target their lead dreadnought," Sarah ordered. "All weapons, full spread. Let's show them what happens when you threaten the innocent." The Terran's wrath unleashed its full arsenal. Railguns fired depleted uranium slugs at a significant fraction of light speed, while plasma cannons sent streams of superheated matter racing across the void. The Korthak ship's shields flared and buckled under the assault, but held. "Their shields are down to 70%, Rodriguez reported. But they're returning fire." The enemy response was immediate and devastating. Particle beams lanced out from the Korthak fleet, striking the human ships with surgical precision. The Deathworlder's pride took a direct hit to its engine section, venting atmosphere and debris into space. "Captain Morrison is reporting heavy damage," communications reported. "They're losing life support on decks 7 through 12. Sarah felt each loss like a physical blow, but she couldn't afford to show weakness. The refugees were counting on them. Tell Morrison to fall back and effect repairs. The righteous fury will take his position. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was actually only minutes. The Deathworlder fleet lived up to its reputation, using tactics that would have been considered suicidal by any other species. They rammed damaged ships into enemy formations, used their own vessels as shields for the more vulnerable refugee transports, and fought with a ferocity that left the Korthak reeling. But the odds were against them. For every Korthak ship they destroyed, they lost one of their own. The refugee convoy was intact, but the escorts were being whittled down piece by piece. "Commander," Rodriguez said, his voice tight with tension, "we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up another Korthak fleet approaching from the Aldebaran system. 30 ships, including 2 battle cruisers." Sarah's blood ran cold. They couldn't handle another fleet. Hell, they were barely handling this one. She looked at the tactical display, calculating odds and possibilities. There had to be something, some way to turn this around. Then she saw it. A small notation on the star chart, almost hidden among the sensor readings. A gravitational anomaly just 3 parsecs away. It was marked as a black hole, but the readings were all wrong. Too small, too stable. "Rodriguez, pull up the navigation data on that anomaly." The one marked as a black hole. The tactical officer's fingers flew over his console. "It's strange, ma'am. The gravitational signature is consistent with a black hole, but the mass readings are way off. It's almost like it's artificial," Sarah finished. She'd heard rumors about ancient alien artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy, remnants of civilizations that had vanished long before the current galactic powers had even evolved. Most were dismissed as legends, but Sarah had seen enough impossible things during her years in the Deathworlder fleet to keep an open mind. "Ma'am," Park called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the lead refugee transport." It's a child." Sarah felt her heart clench. "Put it through." The voice that came through the calm was small and scared, speaking in the melodious tones of the Zolani language. The translator converted it to English. "Please, starry human lady, don't let them take us. My mama says you're the bravest people in the galaxy. Please help us." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. When she opened them again, her decision was made. "Helm, set course for that anomaly. Maximum burn." "Ma'am?" The helmsman looked confused. "That's a black hole. We'll be torn apart by the tidal forces." "Trust me," Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. "And signal the fleet. We're going to try something that's either brilliant or completely insane." The Terran's wrath changed course, the rest of the fleet following in tight formation. The refugee ships, lashed together with emergency cables, stayed in the center of the protective formation. Behind them, the Korthak fleet gave pursuit, their ships sleek and deadly against the starfield. As they approached the anomaly, Sarah could see why it had been misidentified. From a distance, it looked like a black hole, a dark sphere that seemed to bend light around it. But as they got closer, she could make out details that didn't belong. Geometric patterns on the surface, structures that looked almost architectural. "It's not a black hole," she whispered. "It's a ship. A ship the size of a moon." The readings confirmed her suspicions. The object was hollow, with a complex internal structure that defied easy analysis. And it was old, so old that the radioactive decay suggested it had been drifting in space for millions of years. "Commander," Rodriguez said, his voice tight with fear, "we're picking up some kind of energy signature from that thing. It's powering up." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Ancient alien technology was notoriously unpredictable. But they were out of options. The Korthak fleet was closing in, and the second enemy force would arrive within the hour. "All ships, prepare for unknown contact," she ordered. "And pray that whatever built that thing was friendlier than our current problem." The ancient vessel began to glow with an internal light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Patterns of illumination raced across its surface, forming symbols that hurt to look at directly. And then, without warning, it spoke. The voice that filled the bridge was ancient beyond measure, speaking in a language that predated the rise of galactic civilization. But somehow, impossibly, Sarah understood it. Who disturbs the gardener's rest? Sarah swallowed hard and stepped forward. I am Commander Sarah Chun of the Terran Deathworlder fleet. We are protecting refugees from persecution. We seek sanctuary. Refugees. The word seemed to echo with infinite sadness. Yes, we too were once refugees. Fleeing those who would destroy what we cherished. Show me these beings you protect. The screens around the bridge flickered, showing images of the Zilani families huddled in their transport ships. The children, the elderly, the sick, all of them looking to the human ships for protection they couldn't provide for themselves. They are beautiful, the voice said after a long moment. Creators, like we once were. Yes, we will help. The ancient ship began to move, its massive bulk accelerating with impossible smoothness. As it passed the human fleet, Sarah felt a strange sensation, as if something vast and benevolent was examining her very soul. You are interesting, small warrior, the voice said directly into her mind. Your species is young, but you have chosen to be protectors rather than conquerors. This is unusual. We do what we have to do, Sarah replied, not sure if she was speaking aloud or just thinking very loudly. Indeed. Watch now, and learn what true power looks like. The Korthak fleet was closing in fast, their weapons charging for what they clearly expected to be a final assault. But as the ancient ship moved between them and the refugees, everything changed. Space itself seemed to bend around the massive vessel. The Korthak ship slowed, then stopped, caught in some kind of gravitational field that held them as motionless as flies in amber. Their weapons fired, but the energy beams curved away harmlessly, deflected by forces beyond current understanding. Your persecution of the innocent ends here, the ancient voice boomed across all frequencies. Return to your worlds and speak of this day. Tell them that the gardeners still watch over those who create beauty in the darkness. The Korthak ships were flung backward with such force that their hulls groaned under the stress. In seconds, they were scattered across the system, their formations broken and their weapons offline. The second fleet, just arriving from Aldebaran, took one look at the impossible sight and immediately jumped back to hyperspace. It is done, the voice said, sounding tired. The threat is ended. But know this, young protector, our time in this galaxy is ending. Soon, we will journey beyond the edge of known space, seeking new gardens to tend. The responsibility for protecting the innocent will fall to others. Sarah felt a profound sense of loss, as if she was saying goodbye to a parent she'd never known. Will we ever see you again? Perhaps. If your species continues to grow in wisdom as well as strength. But remember this lesson, true power is not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. Guard that truth well, Commander Chen. The ancient ship began to fade, its massive form becoming transparent as it prepared to depart this reality. But before it vanished completely, Sarah felt something being placed in her mind, knowledge, coordinates, a gift of immeasurable value. A safe harbor, the voice whispered. For when the refugees need a new home. Use it wisely. And then they were gone, leaving only empty space and the scattered remains of the Korthak fleet. Sarah stood in the sudden silence, trying to process what had just happened. Around her, the bridge crew was equally stunned, staring at their instruments as if they could make sense of the impossible. Ma'am, Rodriguez said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, the Korthak survivors are requesting permission to surrender. Sarah almost laughed. After everything they'd been through, after the ancient guardians had scattered their fleet like leaves in a storm, now they wanted to surrender? Tell them to return to their territory and never threaten refugees again, she said. And if they ever come back, they'll find the Deathworlder fleet waiting for them. As the Korthak ships limped away, Sarah turned her attention to the refugee convoy. The Zilani were emerging from their hiding places, their large eyes wide with wonder and gratitude. The child who had spoken to her earlier appeared on the calm screen, smiling for the first time since the journey began. Thank you, brave human lady, the child said in halting English. Are we safe now? Sarah smiled back, feeling the weight of the ancient knowledge in her mind. She knew of a world now, a garden planet hidden in a nebula where the Zilani could build a new home. A place where artists and philosophers could create beauty without fear. "Yes, little one," she said. "You're safe now. And I know just the place where you can build a new home." The journey to the hidden world took 3 days. During that time, Sarah shared what she'd learned with the fleet's xenobiologists and diplomats. The planet was perfect, the right gravity, the right atmosphere, rich in the minerals the Zilani needed for their crystal gardens. It was uninhabited, protected by the same ancient technology that had driven off the Korthak. When they finally emerged from hyperspace and saw the world spread out before them, the Zilani wept with joy. It was beautiful beyond description, with crystal formations that caught the light of the system's twin suns and cast rainbows across rolling hills of silver grass. "It's perfect," the refugee leader said, his voice thick with emotion. "But how can we ever repay you?" Sarah stood with him on the observation deck, watching as the first shuttles prepared to launch. "You don't repay kindness," she said. "You pass it on." The settlement went smoothly. The Zilani were skilled builders and gardeners, and within weeks they had established a thriving community. The children played in the crystal gardens while their parents worked to build schools and libraries. It was everything a refugee camp should be, but rarely was a place of hope and new beginnings. But Sarah's respite was short-lived. 3 weeks after the Zilani settlement was established, the Deathworlder fleet received a priority message from Earth Command. The Maltari, a species of cybernetic warriors, had begun a campaign of conquest in the Vega sector. They were targeting agricultural worlds, enslaving the populations to work their strip mines. "How many ships do we have available?" Sarah asked Captain Morrison during their briefing. Morrison consulted his data pad. 14 combat-ready vessels, including the Terran's Wrath. The Righteous Fury is still undergoing repairs from the Korthak engagement. Sarah nodded grimly. The Maltari were different from the Korthak, less numerous but far more dangerous individually. Each warrior was a fusion of organic and mechanical parts, capable of surviving in vacuum and shrugging off weapons that would kill most other species. "What about the civilians we're protecting this time?" "The Fenari," Morrison replied. "Plant-based life forms from the agricultural worlds. They're completely pacifist, they don't even have a concept of violence. The Maltari have been using them as living mining equipment, forcing them to extract metals from or using their natural abilities." Sarah felt her anger rising. The Fenari were gentle beings who communicated through pheromones and spent their lives tending to growing things. The idea of them being forced to work in strip mines was obscene. "How many refugees are we looking at?" "Approximately 50,000, spread across 12 transport ships. They're barely spaceworthy, the Maltari let them take nothing but the most basic life support equipment." Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. 50,000 refugees against an unknown number of Maltari ships. It would be their biggest rescue operation yet. "Sir," Lieutenant Park interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead refugee transport. It's hard to understand. They don't communicate like us." Sarah nodded. The Fenari used chemical signals to communicate, which made standard translation equipment useless. But the fleet had been working with xenolinguists to develop new protocols. "Put it through the modified translator." The voice that emerged from the speakers was strange, almost musical, like wind through leaves. "Kind humans, we feel your strong presence in the void. Our roots are cut, our soil is poisoned, but we still grow toward the light. Help us find new Earth." Sarah felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with seeing the innocent suffer. "Tell them we're coming," she said. "Tell them the Deathworlder fleet never abandons those who need protection." The journey to the Vega sector took 5 days at maximum burn. During that time, Sarah studied everything available about the Maltari. They were a relatively young species, having achieved spaceflight only a few centuries ago. But they had made up for lost time by aggressively cybernetically enhancing themselves and conquering every world they could reach. Their ships were brutal, angular things that looked more like weapons than vessels. They had no appreciation for beauty or art, viewing everything in terms of resource extraction and military utility. To them, the galaxy was just raw material waiting to be processed. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out as they approached the Vega system, "I'm picking up Maltari ships. 15 heavy cruisers and 3 command vessels. They're in formation around the 4th planet." Sarah studied the tactical display. The Maltari were protecting something on that world, probably their main mining operation. The refugee ships were scattered throughout the system, trying to stay hidden in asteroid fields and nebula clouds. "What's their disposition?" "Aggressive patrol pattern. They're hunting the refugee ships systematically, using sensor drones to flush them out of hiding." As if to emphasize his point, an explosion flared in the distance. One of the refugee ships had been discovered and was taking heavy fire. Sarah watched in horror as the fragile vessel began to break apart, its hull unable to withstand the Maltari weapons. "All ships, emergency burn to intercept," she ordered. "We're not losing anyone else today." The Deathworlder fleet burst from hyperspace like avenging angels, their weapons already charging. The Terran's Wrath led the charge, its railguns sending streams of depleted uranium into the nearest Maltari cruiser. The enemy ship's armor was thick, but human weapons were designed to penetrate any defense. "Direct hit," Rodriguez reported. "Their armor is breached on the port side." But the Maltari response was immediate and devastating. Their weapons were energy-based, capable of melting through even the toughest human armor. The Deathworlder's Pride took a direct hit to its bridge, killing Captain Morrison and half his command crew. Sarah felt the loss like a physical blow. Morrison had been with the fleet since its founding, a steady presence who had saved countless lives. But she couldn't mourn him now. Not while there were still refugees to protect. "Righteous Fury, take command of the 2nd Squadron," she ordered. "Focus on the command ships. If we can disrupt their communications, we can break their formation." The battle was different from the one with the Korthak. Where the Insectoid Empire had relied on numbers and coordination, the Maltari fought with individual skill and overwhelming firepower. Each of their ships was a mobile fortress, capable of going toe-to-toe with multiple human vessels. But the Deathworlder fleet had advantages the Maltari couldn't match. Human crews were trained to think independently, to adapt to changing situations without waiting for orders. And they fought with a desperation that came from knowing that innocent lives hung in the balance. "Ma'am," Park called out, "I'm getting a signal from the planet's surface. It's horrible." Sarah glanced at the communications station. "What is it?" "The Maltari have thousands of Fenari prisoners working in the mines. They're forcing them to extract rare minerals using their natural abilities. The conditions are..." Park swallowed hard. "The Fenari are dying, ma'am. Their chemical messages are full of pain and despair." Sarah felt her anger crystallize into something cold and hard. The Maltari weren't just conquerors, they were monsters who delighted in the suffering of others. Well, they were about to learn what happened when you crossed the Deathworlder fleet. "Target their command ship," she ordered. "Full spread, everything we have." The Terran's Wrath unleashed its full arsenal. Railguns, plasma cannons, and missile pods all fired in perfect coordination. The Maltari command ship's shields flared under the assault, but held. However, the distraction was enough for the other human ships to close the distance. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Ships exploded in brilliant fireballs, their destruction lighting up the void. The Maltari fought with the cold efficiency of machines, while the humans fought with the desperate fury of those protecting their own. But slowly, inevitably, the tide began to turn. The Maltari ships were powerful, but they were also predictable. Their cybernetic nature made them excellent at following programmed responses, but poor at adapting to unexpected tactics. Sarah watched as the Righteous Fury rammed directly into a Maltari cruiser, its captain sacrificing his ship to save a refugee transport. The explosion was visible from across the system, a brilliant star that flared and died in seconds. "That's it," she whispered. Then, louder, "All ships, we're going to end this. Formation Delta 7, everything we have left." Formation Delta 7 was a desperation move, something the fleet had practiced but never used in actual combat. It involved the remaining ships linking their fire control systems and concentrating all their firepower on a single target. It would leave them vulnerable to counterattack, but if it worked. The combined fire of the Deathworlder fleet focused on the lead Multari command ship. The enemy vessel's shields overloaded in seconds, its armor beginning to buckle under the sustained assault. And then, with a flash that lit up the entire system, it exploded. The loss of their command ship threw the Multari into chaos. Their rigid command structure couldn't adapt to the sudden change, and their remaining ships began to break formation. The human fleet pressed their advantage, picking off the scattered cruisers one by one. When the smoke cleared, the Multari fleet was gone. A few ships had escaped to hyperspace, but the vast majority were nothing but debris floating in the void. "Status report," Sarah ordered, her voice hoarse from shouting orders. "We've lost 6 ships, including the Righteous Fury," Rodriguez reported. "But all the refugee transports are intact. The Fenari are safe." Sarah slumped back in her command chair, exhaustion washing over her. Another victory, but at such a cost. Good people had died to protect the innocent, and she would have to live with that knowledge for the rest of her life. "Ma'am," Park said softly, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. The Fenari prisoners have been freed. They're asking for permission to join the refugee convoy." Sarah nodded. Of course they would. The Multari had poisoned their world, made it uninhabitable for their kind. They would need a new home, just like the Zilani had. "Tell them they're welcome," she said. "The Deathworlder fleet protects all who need protection." The evacuation took 3 days. The Fenari were weak from their imprisonment, many of them suffering from exposure to the toxic chemicals used in the mining operation. But they were alive, and they were free. As the convoy prepared to depart, Sarah found herself thinking about the ancient voice that had spoken to her during the Korthak crisis. The gardeners had said that the responsibility for protecting the innocent would fall to others. Was this what they had meant? Was humanity destined to become the galaxy's protectors? The thought was both humbling and terrifying. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species who preyed on the weak. How could one small fleet, even one as determined as the Deathworlder fleet, hope to make a difference? But as she watched the Fenari children playing in the transport ships, their natural bioluminescence creating beautiful patterns in the darkness, she knew the answer. You didn't protect the entire galaxy all at once. You protected it one life at a time, one family at a time, one species at a time. "Commander," Rodriguez said, interrupting her thoughts, "Earth Command is requesting a status report. They want to know if we need reinforcements." Sarah smiled grimly. "Tell them we could use more ships, but we're managing. And tell them the Deathworlder fleet is ready for whatever comes next." As if summoned by her words, the communications board lit up with incoming messages. Reports of attacks on civilian populations, of refugees fleeing persecution, of the innocent crying out for protection. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of predators who saw kindness as weakness. But they were about to learn otherwise. The Deathworlder fleet was out there, watching, waiting, ready to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. And they would never give up, never surrender, never abandon those who needed their protection. Because that's what humans did. They stood between the darkness and the light, between the predators and their prey. They were the Deathworlder fleet, and they protected the galaxy's most vulnerable. The journey to find new homes for the Fenari and the remaining Zilani refugees took them deep into unexplored space. Sarah had been studying the star charts, looking for worlds that could support both plant-based and crystalline life forms. It was a challenge that would have been impossible without the knowledge the gardeners had shared with her. "Commander," Park called out, "we're receiving a strange signal." It's not from any known species." Sarah frowned. First contact situations were always delicate, especially when you were escorting refugees through unknown space. "What kind of signal?" "It's mathematical. Prime numbers, followed by mathematical constants. Classic first contact protocol." Sarah nodded. Mathematical sequences were the universal language, the one thing that any intelligent species would recognize regardless of their biology or culture. "Origin point? A system about 2 parsecs ahead of us. Single star, 7 planets. The signal is coming from the third planet. Sarah studied the tactical display. The system didn't appear on any of their star charts, which meant it was either very remote or very well hidden. But the mathematical signal suggested intelligence, and intelligence could mean either help or danger. All ships, reduced to half impulse, she ordered. We're going to investigate, but carefully. Keep the refugees in the center of our formation. As they approached the system, Sarah could see that the third planet was beautiful, a world of blue oceans and green continents, with two small moons orbiting close to the surface. It looked almost like Earth, but with subtle differences that suggested alien origins. I'm picking up artificial structures on the surface, Rodriguez reported. Cities, but not like anything I've ever seen. They're organic looking. Like they grew rather than being built. And the energy readings? Minimal. Whatever civilization is down there, they're not using much power. It's almost like they're trying to avoid detection. Sarah pondered this. A hidden civilization with minimal energy output, sending mathematical signals to passing ships. It could be a trap, but it could also be exactly what they needed, a safe haven for refugees. Ma'am, Park said, we're receiving a new transmission. It's in Standard Galactic. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Standard Galactic was the common language used by the Galactic Council, but it was relatively new. How would an unknown species in unexplored space know it? Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was soft and musical, with an accent Sarah couldn't identify. Greetings, travelers. We are the Vorthak, guardians of this system. We have been watching your progress and are impressed by your dedication to protecting the innocent. We offer sanctuary to those who seek it. Sarah felt a chill of suspicion. In her experience, offers of help from unknown species usually came with strings attached. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Deathworlder fleet. We appreciate your offer, but we'll need to know more about your intentions. Of course. We were once refugees ourselves, fleeing persecution from those who would destroy us. We have built a safe haven here, hidden from the galaxy's predators. Your refugees are welcome to join us. The offer was tempting, but Sarah had learned to be cautious. We'll need to inspect your world first. Make sure it's safe for our people. You are wise to be cautious, Commander Chen. But know that we have been watching your actions, and we approve of your mission. The galaxy has too few protectors and too many predators. We would be honored to help you in your work. Sarah made her decision. Very well. We'll send a small team to the surface to evaluate the situation. If everything checks out, we'll discuss terms for refugee settlement. The shuttle bay of the Terran's Wrath was bustling with activity as the away team prepared for departure. Sarah had chosen her best people, Lieutenant Rodriguez for tactical assessment, Dr. Kim for medical and biological evaluation, and Ensign Park for communications and cultural analysis. Remember, Sarah told them as they climbed aboard the shuttle, we're not just evaluating this world as a potential refuge. We're also gathering intelligence on a completely unknown species. Stay alert, stay together, and if anything feels wrong, get out immediately. The flight to the planet's surface took 30 minutes. As they descended through the atmosphere, Sarah could see the cities Rodriguez had mentioned. They were indeed organic looking, with flowing curves and natural materials that seemed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. It's beautiful, Dr. Kim observed, studying the medical scanner readings. The atmosphere is breathable for most species, and the ecosystem is remarkably diverse. I'm reading thousands of different life forms, all in perfect balance. The shuttle landed in a clearing near the largest city. As they disembarked, Sarah was struck by the silence. There were no mechanical sounds, no industrial noise, just the gentle whisper of wind through strange, crystalline trees. Welcome, came a voice from behind them. Sarah spun around to see a figure emerging from the forest. The Vorthak was humanoid but clearly alien, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. Its clothing seemed to be made from living plants that shifted color as it moved. I am Kent, speaker for our people, the alien said in perfect Standard Galactic. We have prepared a place for your evaluation. Please, follow me. As they walked through the city, Sarah was amazed by what she saw. The buildings were indeed grown rather than built, their walls made from what looked like hardened coral or bone. Gardens were everywhere, filled with plants that seemed to glow with their own inner light. "This is incredible," Dr. Kim whispered. "The entire city is one giant ecosystem. Every building, every street, every decorative element is alive and contributing to the whole." Kent overheard her comment and smiled. "We learned long ago that the key to survival is harmony, not domination. When you work with nature instead of against it, you can create beauty beyond imagination." They were led to a large amphitheater where dozens of Vortak had gathered. As Sarah and her team entered, the aliens began to sing a hauntingly beautiful melody that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. "They're welcoming us," Park said, his translation equipment working overtime. "The song is about travelers finding safe harbor after a long journey." Sarah felt her suspicions beginning to ease. The Vortak seemed genuinely peaceful, their entire civilization built around principles of harmony and cooperation. But she had been fooled before, and the lives of 50,000 refugees depended on her judgment. "Kent," she said, "your offer of sanctuary is generous, but I need to know more about your capabilities. Can your world actually support the refugees we're protecting?" Kent's expression grew serious. "We have been preparing for this moment for many years, Commander Chin. Our world can support millions of beings, not just thousands. We have habitat zones prepared for every major species type: crystalline, plant-based, silicon-based, even aquatic forms." "And in return?" "In return, we ask only that those who settle here contribute to our society according to their abilities. The Zalani are skilled artists and philosophers, we would love to learn from them. The Fenari are master gardeners, they could help us expand our ecosystems." Sarah studied the alien's face, looking for signs of deception. But all she saw was sincerity and hope. "What about defenses? If your world is as hidden as you claim, how do you know it will stay that way?" Kent smiled sadly. "We have learned to hide from predators, Commander Chen. Our cities are shielded from most forms of detection, and our technology is designed to leave minimal energy signatures. But you are right to be concerned. The galaxy is full of those who would destroy what we have built. Which is why we need allies," another voice added. Sarah turned to see another Vortak approaching, this one older, with silver markings on its skin that seemed to indicate rank or age. "I am Zephyr, eldest of our council," the newcomer said. "We have watched the Deathworlder fleet's actions with great interest. Your species has chosen to be protectors, not conquerors. This is rare in the galaxy." "Not rare enough," Sarah replied grimly.